Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining today's talks. My name is Dr. Melissa Wartman, and I'm a research fellow at Deakin University. Today I'll be talking about how we're taking years of scientific research that the Blue Carbon Lab has done and other research institutes around Australia and translating it into on-ground action through the Victorian Coastal Wetland Restoration Program. Before I dive into the current work that I'm doing, I just wanted to take a step back and talk about the research that I did as a Bill Berthwick Scholarship recipient in 2015. During this time, I was doing my PhD at Monash University, and I was studying the impacts of climate change on key environmental drivers of algal blooms, and my study area was the Gippsland Lakes. The scholarship supported a study that investigated the factors that could influence vertical migration patterns of toxic phytoplankton. And so what we found was that the vertical migration strategy of the species that we studied, it was influenced by its mixotrophic behavior and production of chemical deterrents. And understanding this is important for environmental managers looking after the lakes to understand how these key behaviors could change in the future and might cause more and longer term blooms, which can impact the ecosystem, but also have negative economic impacts as well. So now we're going to shift out of the water column and back towards the intertidal zone into coastal ecosystems. Coastal ecosystems, which include mangroves, tidal marshes, seagrass meadows, and seaweeds, are the world's most secure and reliable carbon sink. They can sequester carbon 30 to 50 times faster than trees. And not only that, they provide many benefits to us as humans, including supporting coastal fisheries, protecting our coastlines, improving biodiversity and water quality, and providing areas for tourism and recreational activities. However, we have lost 65% of coastal wetlands globally due to anthropogenic impacts and threats that continue to this day and range from urban and agricultural development and inappropriate recreation. And that is why we have developed the Victorian Coastal Wetland Restoration Program to undertake the restoration of critical wetland habitat to help mitigate climate change impacts while facilitating the recovery of some of Victoria's most endangered and threatened plants and animals. So this program is made up of 3 different components, which I'll go into now. So for Program 1, we're developing a restoration action plan for Avalon Coastal Reserve, which historically used to be natural coastal wetlands, but then was converted into a salt works for the production of salt that has now shut about a decade or 2 ago, but is currently left with these levees and ponds. So we're working with UNSW Water Research Lab to develop a hydrodynamic model that looks at the flow of water across the site currently, and then we can test different restoration scenarios and look at how that will impact the flow of water across the site and look at the outcomes for both birds and salt marsh species. And this site could be the first demonstration site in Australia to collect carbon credits through the Emission Reduction Fund by restoring tidal exchange to the area. And we estimate that this site of approximately 340 hectares has the potential to accumulate 180 tons of carbon each year. Program 2 is delivering on-ground low-cost wetland restoration action through fencing and weed management along the Victorian coast. So far, we have restored almost 250 football fields worth of coastal wetlands, and this restoration has resulted in almost $900,000 worth of ecosystem services from those sites. We are currently monitoring the recovery and outcomes of the restoration work we have completed in order to optimize future work we will undertake. And finally, for Program 3, we have the opportunity to work with Wadawurrung to protect sites of cultural significance at Point Lilias. For future restoration, we'll use Point Lilias as a case study example of how combining traditional and Western knowledge you can achieve better conservation and restoration outcomes. Thanks for listening to my talk today. I'm happy to take any questions during the question period, but you can head over to bluecarbonlab.org to find out more information on the Victorian Coastal Wetland Restoration Program.